Hi, it's Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's Slater Success Live. I am thrilled to introduce you to a dear friend, a woman who I respect enormously, who I've had the honor and the pleasure to work with over the years, speak with on platforms over the years, lead with, collaborate with. Robyn Hatcher is a leader in her own right. She has spent over 15 years working with leaders and employees in some of the world's top organizations. She realizes that it's time to reevaluate, and this is so true, and this is why I love Robyn, reevaluate how we identify, compare, and train leaders, especially around the area of communication, which is truly her sweet spot. So, Robyn, thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Ivy. It's a pleasure. I can't wait to talk to you about this online.
I know, and I put this in the LinkedIn post is whenever we sit down to have coffee, a conversation, we run into each other. I always walk away learning something from you. So
yeah.
it is, truly my joy. Listeners and viewers out there, as you are scrolling through LinkedIn, if you see this feed, take a moment, listen in. If you have a question, you have a comment, just pop it into the comments below, and Robyn and I will be looking and watching them throughout this broadcast, which will go from about 3:30 to 4 today. So, Robyn, share with me a little bit. How did you come into communication being your sweet spot? Where did this develop from?
Yeah, interesting question, especially since no one would have pegged me for communication person since I didn't speak for like the first 3 years of my life. I really was extremely shy, hated to talk, hated to interact with people. But one of the things that I learned in that little bubble of shyness was how important communication is and how it can be shaped and shifted and how it can be misinterpreted. And so when I decided to break free of my shy straitjacket, the way I did that was through theater. I decided to audition for a play, got that role. And so through theater, also you learn the nuances of communicating. It's like you could think one thing and say it in one way or say it in a different way, and your partner, your acting partner, the entire scene would shift depending on how you communicated. So all of the knowledge that I learned growing up, observing communication, plus all of the knowledge I started learning through becoming an actor, made me passionate about helping people get better at it, because I saw how it wasn't really working in real life a lot.
It's amazing because, people who see us out and about in New York in various, networking situations and conferences everywhere we've been, around together, probably wouldn't peg you and I as two introverts.
Right? I know. And I tell people that and they're like, oh, come on. It's but
Exactly.
you learn how to adapt and be flexible. And one of the flexible things you need to do is to act as if you're not an introvert.
Well, and I love how you're saying that because I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of truth. A lot of people say, you mean so you just kind of like put it on either, or you fake it, or you fake it till you make it kind of like approach. And I was like, no, no, no. It's truly, to me, act as if.
Yeah.
Act as if. And I love a slide that I pulled ages ago of a little girl dressing up in those mom shoes and that mom
Yeah.
outfit with all the pearls around her neck. And
Yeah.
I was like, we've been acting as if
Right.
most of our
Right. I
lives.
love that. And I coined my phrase, which I just happen on my t-shirt right here. Don't fake it till you make it. Own it while you hone it.
I love that.
Because I feel like we all have it inside of us. We're all born in this world for a reason, I believe. And we all have a purpose. We all have the power. We all have magnetism. We all have specialness. And we need to own it. And we can still continue to work on it. So it's nothing about being fake. It's nothing about being pretending. It's just stepping like the shoes. You're just stepping into who it is that you are and representing it one way or another. And one of the analogies I love to give all the time is like, if you were invited to the Oscars, you wouldn't show up in your pajamas, right? You would find something lovely and delicious and beautiful to wear. And that's how we are with our personas and our intention and our personalities. It's like, what is going to fit that occasion?
And that's so true. So let me ask you this. In the sense of communication, you know, 2020, in March of 2020, the world shifted.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things is it challenged us as leaders of in our how strong are we in our communication skills?
Right.
How do we lead? How do we communicate? All of a sudden, when the conference rooms went dark and Zoom went live, there was the concept of learning how to use a ring light. As I'm looking at it, it's a concept of learning how to use a screen, multiple screens, or anything else. But when you take the screens away, it's truly in the heart of communication. What have you seen and guided people with during the last couple of years?
Yeah, it's been really, really interesting because I just did a training yesterday out in Long Island for a group of leaders. And now we're into that flex time, that flexible. So half are at home and half. So the biggest question leaders were coming to me with was, how do I engage? How do I keep the people engaged
Right.
if they're not in the room with me? And that was a big thing very early on. And so some of the things that I did, I actually did a little spot for this TV show, The List TV, about creating virtual water coolers, because I feel like that's a really important thing that people need to do. That water cooler conversation needs to still happen. And yesterday with this group, they were complaining about how many meetings there were that they had to go to. And it's true. It's like, so now people are so starved for engagement that they start piling on these meetings. But if these meetings are just transactional, or are they just reporting, they're doing more harm than good. So I really, really have cautioned or suggested to people to create those like 15-minute, 30-minute times that you're just getting together with your team to chat. Doesn't have to be work related at all. It's a connection opportunity. One of my one-on-one coaching clients, executive coaching clients, did that, and he saw a tremendous change in his workforce. People were engaged again. They enjoyed it. They started bringing different departments to his water cooler meetings, and it really makes a big difference.
And it's so funny, and it's so true what you're saying, in the sense of one of the things I've guided a bunch of my clients with is having scheduled open Zoom rooms, certain amount of times a week, of you just open Zoom, you invite anybody in. You
Right.
can ask a question, you could chat, as if running into a person
Exactly.
at the water cooler, filling up that, as I say, that glass of water here,
Yeah.
and using the opportunities strategically. Jessica Mora, thanks for chiming in. You're saying, love it. So true.
Yeah.
We need to create these times. We need to shift and see the value of things, have how they ran in the office. And we might be in the office in a hybrid schedule at this time, but that means we're still not touching everyone.
Right. And there's a huge difference. It's like when it first started, I was, as an introvert, I was kind of like loving it. It's like, okay, all I have to do is go in front of my computer and do and be me and not have to leave. And it was really cool. But it started wearing a little bit thin because we as human beings, we're tribal human beings. And I study, a lot of brain science, and I geek out on the brain science of stuff. And the fact is that we need those hormonal exchange as a tribal human being, and that we cannot get through the lens. And so that was it was really having an effect on relationships. And so, yeah, getting out there, it was great. The training I did yesterday was in person. It was like the third in-person training. And so it makes a huge, huge difference. And so one of the things that we also need to do when we're on that virtual is make it a little bit more emotionally engaging and not as transactional, because that can start to take the place for those hormones not being exchanged, and so how can we do that? And also, it's like, look at the way that you're positioned online too. A lot of people don't have their cameras on. They don't have enough of their body showing so that I can see your heart. Those are some of the smaller things, I believe, that make a huge difference in how you're coming across online and how you're being perceived and how people are being affected by you.
And, I think it's interesting in the sense of it is, if we're not truly engaging enough with each other, where we start missing out, I'll always say, people do business with people. We
Right.
think we do business with businesses, but we actually do business with people. And if we don't have the time and the opportunity to get to know people and really engage and build
Yeah.
those relationships,
Yeah.
we're missing out. And it's the conversation of, hey, what are you guys doing Memorial Day weekend? Okay, everybody who's scrolling through
Yeah.
LinkedIn, what are some highlights you're looking forward to do this weekend? Get to know one another
Yeah.
as true people.
Oh, it's so important, Ivy. I was just talking about that yesterday, and I so agree because, it's so many research has proven that when you get to know somebody, you trust them, and then it just makes the leadership easier. So a lot of times people want to keep their personal lives out of things, and let's not. And in fact, one of the leaders I was talking to, he said that in the beginning he got reprimanded by one of his senior leaders for having chit chat in the beginning of a meeting. And he was like, just get to the point. And it's like, no, I don't want to just get to the point. We need to get to know each other. So a lot of leaders don't even realize how important it's like they think that it's a waste of time. But you know what? You're saving so much time in the long run if you allow your people to get to know each other, because then all the communication can be short track. It's like, oh, I don't need to ask all those questions because I know that person and I trust that person. So there's so much lack of trust in leadership because they don't get to know each other and they're afraid to be vulnerable. They're afraid to give that insight or some opinion. And when we're talking about being vulnerable, own up to how you're feeling that is not so great, not just like what we're doing for Memorial, yeah.
It is so true. And, Robyn, I can think back to so many conversations, so many cups of coffees when we sat down and it said, so how are our kids? How is this? And we truly have spent time over the years of getting to know each other.
Right.
And I knew when we come on these shows together, when we resource one another in business and say, hey, you should meet this, or I want to help you bring you in or bring your skill set in different ways. I know, like, and trust you. And in so many business books, we look at know, like, and trust in the sales piece,
Right.
but we forget the importance of it in leadership.
Yeah.
And true leaders, one thing that is touching my heart that you're sharing is when we really know somebody, I know the way you think. I don't have to look at you to see a response. I could I feel it.
Right.
I totally feel that. And that's so important in building
so
a
important.
relationship.
And the other thing that's so important is then you also can know when something is off, because I teach how important listening is. And so listening to learn is. And so a lot of times if we're talking to somebody, we know them, we know their pace, we know their cadence, they know what they like. And they may not share something with you, but something is off. Maybe their cadence is a little different. Maybe their body language is a little different. Therefore, you know that something is off, and it gives you the opportunity, it gives you the information that you could just say, so Ivy, how are you feeling?
Right.
Is everything okay? And there's no indication that Ivy has to explain. It's just that there was something a little off in her energy, and I want to know. And I think that that's so important as we as us as leaders, and to admit, and it needs to start from the leader. It needs to start from the leader. Exactly. It's like, I'm not having such a great day today, and here's why. That I'm not going to take it out on you. And I read this great advice for somebody who, and I mean, it's a perfect way, because if you've had a bad day and you walk in, just like I'm talking about those hormones that we pick up from each other, those mirror neurons that people pick up, they don't know that they're picking it up, but you're having a bad day. I meet you, I'm picking up your mirror neurons, and what am I thinking? I'm thinking Ivy is really mad at me, or, what did I do wrong?
So what we're doing is we're interpreting it from our point of view. And when we interpret it, it doesn't mean we're interpreting it right, because we're using it based on our beliefs and actually sometimes on our areas that we're not inner confident.
Exactly.
So we look at the worst case scenario.
Yes, exactly. And so a great fix for that is like, you've had a bad day, you come in, and this was the example that this woman gave. It's like she was a doctor doing rounds, and she had a horrible, horrible day leaving the house, or children or something like that. So she walks in, she looks at all of her students, and she says, I just had a really terrible day morning. It has nothing to do with you. Let's go have the best rounds ever. And all of the medical students could just like, she could feel them just sigh and relax. And then they wound up having the best rounds ever. But if she had walked in the mood and not said that, who knows?
And the other piece about that piece of communication is what you're doing by sharing forward. You've all of a sudden created an energy field that everybody is trying to lift you up.
Exactly.
And there is a massive, massive piece that when we don't do that, we miss out on.
Yeah.
We truly miss out. We've all had good and bad moments. Robyn, you've raised your son, I've raised my kids. We've all started in those good days. This morning I'm in the, complete disclosure. This is real, ladies and gentlemen. In the bathroom, I turn my hairdryer on and it starts smelling burnt. That's probably a sign to turn it off and get rid of it. Because when you read some things online, which I went to do, it says, oh, very often that starts a fire.
Oh, lovely.
Right. So I was like, immediately, right? Hairdryer finished, go on, order it in, it will be here tomorrow. But it's like, okay, now we're doing video. So how do I feel? Am I my usual confident self? It's like, what am I going to do about this? And then and I shot a video and I sent it to my team. I was like, does this look weird? Do I have to go buy a hairdryer like before noon? And they're like, no, you're fine. What's your problem? You look like the same. But my inner confidence, right? It's different. It started, my day started a little bit off kilter.
Yeah.
And so we start projecting.
Oh, it's so true. We project what people, we project our own weaknesses and make the assumption that somebody else has seen them and are calling you out on them. And it's terrible. And we also see in other people our own weaknesses, because like, it's so funny when an acting teacher told me this years ago, and it really is so true. I see it in workshops as well. He said, when the feedback that you give another actor is typically something that you need to do yourself. Yeah. And it is so true, because we see it in the other person, and then it's like, oh, maybe that's a mirror.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and there's that mirror I'm looking at. So what do we see moving forward? What do we see as far as the piece of communication and some of the things we've learned and some of the advantages in business moving forward in the communications piece?
Right. What I hope we see, and what I pray that we see, is more inclusivity all around, and so that's been coming up a lot. And I know since George Floyd and all this other thing, we're talking about so much diversity and inclusion. One of my things is, I truly believe in this. So much of the DE&I work doesn't work. And I believe it doesn't work because inclusiveness is so much broader than race. It's so much broader than gender. It's so much broader than ethnicity and sexual orientation. Inclusivity is individualistic, and so when I went to write my book, I created something I call actor types. And actor types are the different styles of communication that we have. And I also have created a framework called the Icu Framework, which is like all of the needs and the triggers that people have, the emotional, psychological needs that people have and need met, like importance and inclusion and connectedness. And they vary from person to person. And within a race, they vary from person to person. So you can have an African-American person who really needs clarity and is sharp and wants everything done like this. And you can have an African-American person who really needs to know that you like them and it needs connectedness. And so if we lump everything together and call it, we're going to be inclusive with that, that's not going to work. And I feel like what we need, and in these 2 years, is it broadened out to inclusivity as the people that are in the office, the inclusivity of the people who are not in the office. You know, we've got so many, this is the first time we'll have 4 different generations in a workplace at a time. So we've got generational differences. And the bottom line is we need to make sure that everybody feels seen, heard, and valued for who it is that they are. And at the same time, and I like to teach people, both the leaders and the people being led, because at the same time, we have to own up and value ourselves, you know, because people are not going to see, own, and value and hear you if you don't see, hear, and value yourself. So I feel like with leadership, both of those things have to happen simultaneously. And I'm hoping that this pandemic will help people to learn to be more inclusive leaders.
You're a touching piece of my heart. Honestly, I agree with you. I think it is about inclusion, and I think when we look at inclusion, it goes back to seeing people for who they are as people, and all their strengths and all their attributes and all their differences.
Right.
Differences come in learning differences. Some people are, I'll always throw myself as an example, because then I don't have to, I don't have to come. I have enough examples, like,
right.
But if we look at, I'm about to submit something, and I know I'm not that great of a writer. So I wrote it and I threw it out to my team, and I said, "Can you guys just give this a once over?" Right? I don't have inner confidence in my writing. I don't have inner confidence because was not a reader growing up. So my grammar, my comprehension is weak if I'm reading a lot. So, and I wanted to really make sure I followed the directions. So I had somebody check me.
Right. Yeah.
It's not because I can't do it. It's that I want to excel. So we all have our strengths.
Right.
We all have our differences, and how to bring it forward and respect and help everybody with their differences, making all of us a stronger leading society.
Right. Right. So true. And we have to, and to that point, knowing and advancing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, and like you said, getting help for it, and not falling for the perfectionist BS, for lack of a better word, because we've been so indoctrinated that as a leader, you have to be perfect. As a success, you have to be perfect. And that's what gets us. It's like, so asking for help for something is just unheard of, because if I ask for help, then that means I'm not perfect. Or if I have this weakness, and yesterday's training, I did this whole emotional intelligence leadership styles, and you've got like the 6 that are, the 4 that are really positive, and then there are 2 that have to be cautioned. You could use all of those, but people get stuck on one or the other, and then when you get stuck on that, you don't develop in the other area. And so sometimes it's like, if you realize, like, I can never really, like, one of my confession weakness, I'm really bad at time. I'm really bad at like controlling the time and organizing and scheduling, and I've worked really hard on that. But there are little things I can put into place to be more organized, but that's my weakness. And whenever like something's going on, it's like I freak out. It's like, oh my God, I'm not organized. I'm not organized enough. And then it's like, I just have to breathe and say, well, you've got other strengths.
And I think that's a huge piece of inclusivity. We all have things we're not good at.
Yeah.
We all, we could have, another cup of coffee or a cocktail someday, and have a game of all the things we're not good at. And yet when we look at all the things we're good at,
right,
I am thrilled to say, right, that always our good is so strong. And when we are conscious of wanting to improve, we can go anywhere.
Right. That's so funny. You just gave me this idea. It's like my mind is thinking, can we create a game like that for leadership? That would be really fun. A game of open, like owning your faults. Yeah, it's like,
okay, so
probably out there somewhere.
Needing to do this together.
I know.
So as we wind down here, Robyn, you know, viewers know the recording is going to be live on LinkedIn. You can continue to listen, watch, make comments. Robyn and I are going to be on it, taking a look at it. Ask questions, we'll weigh in. Robyn, can you share a little bit how people can reach out to you and know more about your work?
Yeah, sure. Please reach out on my website, robynhatcher.com. And I am going to be hosting in June 2 different free webinars or executive roundtables. One is for people to work on their personal impact. And one is to have a discussion around just what we've been talking about, leadership and communicating inclusively in the next, and so that, we've heard so much about the great resignation, and I call it a great reevaluation. It's like, how do we reevaluate what we're doing? And let's talk about how to reevaluate it, what it is that we need to do going forward. So follow me on social media, and you'll see the invitations, or reach out to me for an invitation for either of those 2 workshops. It'll be a lot of fun.
Wonderful. Very excited for you on what's coming up in June. And viewers, we have some more LinkedIn Lives coming your way in June. So stay tuned to LinkedIn as we continue to bring you many, many great guests, as well as you could check out some of the other guests on her success story. Just use slatersuccess.com as a resource to reach it all. Robyn, thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you. Oh, and don't forget to see Ivy's show on my show, Communication RX. So please, you can follow me on Communication RX at Win Win Women TV, and catch it on Hulu or Amazon or on the website, Win Win Women TV.
Terrific. Robyn, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Ivy, for having it. It's been fun.
And viewers, continue to stay tuned to many, many more great content all over LinkedIn with me and Slater Success, as well as other great leaders like Robyn. Feel free to go back to some of our other LinkedIn Live shows. And most importantly, have a great holiday weekend, and feel free to post what you're doing for fun. See you next time.